everyone, so in this video I'm going to be talking about my miscarriage and the process that I went through, so the pregnancy and also the procedure that I did, which was the D&C. So this is still quite fresh in my mind as the procedure happened just last week. So let's see how I go through this video. I'm still in the process. I'm not sure if I'll cry or get upset, hopefully not. I was just speaking with my husband before and I started to tear up already, so but anyway, let's see how it goes. So I really wanted to share this story with you because I realized that there are a lot of women who go through the same thing, and it can be a real struggle because you might not have told many people, so you're in this pretty much alone. I just hope that this can support you, and I just want you to be prepared as much as possible because the chances of us women getting a miscarriage is 1 in 4, I got told. Okay, let me start from the beginning. So I found out that I was pregnant pretty early on. As soon as I missed my period, or I was about 3 to 4 days late, I already discovered within myself that I wasn't feeling the best. Like, I was just feeling not well in general. And the one major symptom that was obvious on my body was my boobs. And yeah, I definitely felt them get bigger. I didn't think too much of it because I've taken a pregnancy test before because I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. But that wasn't the case. So this time I just didn't really want to jump the gun too much. So anyway, I ended up booking an appointment to see my doctor, and I kind of skipped over that part or laid it down a little bit. I just said, oh, I'm just in general feeling pretty unwell and I'm late for my period. And the doctor was like, okay, you need to take a pregnancy test. Like, she was really, like, you need to do this now. So I was like, oh no, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know. And she gave me the cup with the yellow lid on it. As I walked out of the doctor's room, I looked down and I thought, I'm not ready for this, because I kind of had a feeling, obviously if I'm late for my period and my boobs are bigger, that was the one symptom that I've never had before when I've been late for my period. So anyway, I took the test. I walked into the room to see my doctor, gave it to her, and she put it down and she turned around. She had her back towards me and she did something with it, and then turned her head to the computer and then turned it back and looked down. She's like, oh my gosh, you're pregnant. And I said, no way, like that is not, not that it's not possible, but I just thought, no way. Like, I was freaking out a little bit and I thought, oh my gosh, and I was going red in the face and my heart was pumping like crazy. And she's like, okay, now. Then she grabbed the, what do you call it, the patch to do the blood pressure, sorry. Clearly I don't work in the medical field. Anyway, she put it on my arm and she's like, okay, no, you need to calm down so I can take an accurate blood test. So I was just sitting there and I was like sweating. And yeah, so that was that, and I was really excited, and I jumped in my car, and luckily on that day my husband had a day off, so I immediately, when I pulled up at home, I asked him to get off the phone because it was on the phone. I said, can you please get off the phone? And then I was thinking, how am I going to tell him this? Like, I have to tell him now. So yeah, I just told him as I came in the entryway, and I just gave him a big hug. My heart was pounding. I think he kind of knew what was going on, but then I immediately said afterwards, I'm like, I'm pregnant. He's like, so the next step was to get a blood test to check the HCG levels, and it confirmed that I was pregnant. So I had another appointment with my doctor, and she was just saying what I need to do in the next few weeks to prepare. I needed to take some vitamins and also make sure that I eat healthy and exercise, of course, which is something that I do implement in my life anyway. So that was the easy part. But the challenging part during this time was that I was so nauseous. And yeah, I am a healthy person. I love eating my fruits and vegetables. That is not a joke. I literally do. I crave them often. This time during this pregnancy, I could not even think about eating salad or anything like that. It just made me sick. So I had to stick to dry things like cracker bread, crackers. I also like sour lollies and chips, so salty things, and also fries. Like, who does not like fries when they're pregnant? So yeah, that was overall challenging. I have been on a big journey through mental health and also burnout and chronic fatigue. So coming out of that and recovering, and then falling pregnant and having such strong symptoms like being nauseous and not being able to eat and feeling motivated was really tough for me. But anyway, so a few weeks later, I had to go in and get a pregnancy scan. So I was due for my first pregnancy ultrasound, which was at 10 weeks. Oh, and sorry, before I mentioned that, a few weeks prior, so about 2 weeks after I found out I was pregnant, I had the worst abdominal pain. This is an issue I've had in the past. So I've had it happen to me about 4 times in the last 3-4 years, where I've gotten really bad, excruciating abdominal pain. Like, it feels like I'm dying, and it's not an exaggeration. Yeah, this came on one night when I was pregnant, and it had happened 3 times that week. But the reason why I got through the first 2 in that week was because they were short-lived, so they only lasted about 20 minutes, whereas in the past they'd lasted about 2 hours. So I was in bed and I just woke up. The pain was so bad, and my husband was like, "I'll get you some pain medication." I said, "No, this is so bad. Like, it's not going to help. I'm telling you, it hurts so much." And as he went downstairs to get tablets for me, I just grabbed the phone and called 000. This is the first time I had ever done that, but it's just knowing that I was pregnant as well. I could not risk making a mistake. So anyway, I called the ambulance and I said, "I'm having the most excruciating abdominal pain. I'm worried I'm pregnant. I've had this happen before during my period. What is going on?" And she said, "Oh, well, the ambulance will be about 6 hours." And I thought, are you joking? I could miscarry right now. I just don't see how a tiny little precious fetus could survive something like that if the pain was affecting it. So as I was talking to her on the phone, the pain actually subsided, which was just weird to me. So anyway, I said, "Okay, that's fine. I'll get my husband to take me to emergency or something." So hung up. We went to the hospital and we were sitting in the emergency waiting room. There was about 3 other couples or groups there, so it was quite quiet. But it took us about 3 hours to actually get in and to get the medical help. During that time in the waiting room, I was just tearing up. I was getting worried, and I've dealt with a lot of anxiety in my life, so it just started to happen, and I was praying and trying to trust God in the process, but it is hard when you've just had the pain. During that time, we were sitting in the waiting area. A lady came out, a nurse, and she just said, "Just come with me for a moment. I'm just going to take your blood." And I remember sitting down, and as I was sitting there, she put a needle in me, and I just could not handle it at that point. And I couldn't even talk. Like, you know how you just, I can't explain it, but you can't get your words out because you're so upset and you're trying to breathe. Anyway, we got through emergency, and I had to repeat what had happened multiple times to different doctors, and they were on different shifts. But long story short, we were at the hospital for about 14 hours. So it was a long process, a lot of waiting in bed. I was just hanging out and my husband was sitting beside me. But yeah, they whisked me away in the bed and I had an ultrasound and an internal one. So you can see more of what's going on, like having a closer look at the uterus. So yeah, the doctor that was looking at my stomach and the baby and everything, he just confirmed with me quickly, yes, the heartbeat is there, the baby seems fine, and you have no other issues. So that was a relief, but you know, obviously it doesn't explain the pain I had, and also because I've had this pain happen to me before. Anyway, the main thing was that the baby was fine and that I was fine. And I remember him flicking the monitor to me and he said, yes, the baby looks good. And he literally went like that and then back again. So for a few seconds, I saw the little fetus and the heartbeat. It was just flashing. That made me really happy. And in the end, I got discharged and they gave me some strong pain medication if I were to have those cramps again, which I was sure that that would happen. So that trip to emergency was at about week 5 or 6, they estimated. So I found out that I was pregnant in week 4 roughly, and then I went to emergency in week 6. So then week 10 rolls around and I'm due to have my first ultrasound. I got to the appointment and I walked in and I felt quite at peace with everything. But as soon as she put the monitor, the gadget, I don't know, the thing on my stomach, I just knew there was something wrong because she was quiet. She wasn't saying much. In this ultrasound, I literally saw nothing. It sounds horrible, but it just looked like a lump of mush in the uterus, and I just thought that does not look good. So she said, this doesn't look too good, but I would like to take a further look. So that's when they take that rod and go internally. So she said, I want you to empty your bladder, and when you come back, we'll take a look. That's what we did, and the same result. We couldn't see anything. We couldn't see a heartbeat. That was really devastating at that point. And I mean, I think the lady handled it really well. Just her saying, I don't think it looks good, tells me everything. You know, that's all she needs to say. Personally, that was a good response in my opinion. So yeah, I got changed and I was trying to hold back tears. I was starting to cry as the lady walked out, but I was like, no, I have to make it home. I drove home and I started to cry as I was driving. It's pretty dangerous, but I mean, I've done it before. So yeah, I was devastated, and I went into my garage, and as soon as I got out of the car, I just started crying. My husband heard me, so he came out and gave me a big hug. And yeah, then I went up to my office with him. I just said I want to sit in my office, like right here actually. This is where we were sitting because I love this space, and I was just chatting to him and he was really supportive. Anyway, this is when it starts to get frantic. So that ultrasound happened on a Monday. Then that week I went to 3 doctor's appointments to sort out what was happening, and I also went to another ultrasound at the end of the week. So the reason why I got 3 blood tests within that week is because my HCG levels were still high. With those blood tests, we couldn't tell whether I had a miscarriage or not, or whether the baby was still alive. So that's why we had to keep taking tests. But by the last blood test we took that week, it had dropped a little bit, and that was a sign that the baby had passed. So yeah, usually in a pregnancy at that stage, the HCG levels should be going up, not down. So that was a confirmation. But I did ask the doctor, I just said that I need to take another ultrasound. I just want to double check, because I was praying about it to Jesus and I was really hoping that it wasn't so. But after 1 ultrasound and 3 blood tests, it was pretty much confirmed. But I just needed that second ultrasound by the end of the week to confirm for myself. So yeah, at that point I was like, okay, this is what's happened. The next part of this whole process was to see the gynecologist. So after that week of taking blood tests, ultrasounds, and going to the doctor all week, I set up an appointment with the gynecologist on the next Monday. So this would have been at week 11 for me, to organize the next step in handling this miscarriage. If you haven't worked out by now, I had a missed miscarriage. So I didn't miscarry naturally where I was bleeding. The fetus was still in my womb. So I still had the symptoms of nausea and feeling unmotivated and not being able to eat certain foods. So anyway, I talked to my husband about what we should do, and we just thought the next best thing to do was to take the medication, which encourages the miscarriage by taking these tablets. So it causes you to have cramps and opens up the cervix, and yeah, the bleeding will come through. We thought that was the best option. The other option was to remove the fetus surgically. So you would go into a theatre and the doctor would scrape the lining of the uterus or take the fetus out via suction. So anyway, we decided on the medication. We saw the gynecologist and she referred me to the hospital. I remember that day calling around. I think it was on the Tuesday after I saw the gynecologist on Monday. I was calling around back and forth to the hospital and back to the gynecologist because no one knew what was going on, as far as it didn't seem that easy to just ring up and say, I've had a missed miscarriage and I need to speak with a midwife and doctor to organize the appointment. The lady I spoke to on the phone at the hospital, she was so rude. She was short with me and I was just being really nice, and I said, I've had a miscarriage, you know, this is where I'm at. I just spoke with my gynecologist and she said that I had to ring up the hospital and organize an appointment. I still had some questions, important questions, like when can I expect this procedure to go ahead? As I asked that question, she hung up on me. Immediately, I just started crying because I can't handle this after going through this process. Like, it's emotional, and like, I just can't believe how nurses and people like that in a hospital treats people like that, like treats patients like that. Anyway, and so I had to ring the hospital 3 times that day and the gynecologist 3 times to try and organize a referral and this sort of thing. But just a reminder to those out there, you're meant to be looked after. When you're referred from a gynecologist to a hospital regarding this procedure, they are then putting you in their care at the hospital. So you should definitely be treated with respect, and especially treated nicely considering what you are going through. Even though there's a lot of people going through the same thing, like there's no reason to behave like that. So anyway, Thursday rolls around where I managed to get an appointment with the midwife and doctor at the hospital. I was told for this day that I could either have the procedure done, so the D&C, or just get the medication and leave the hospital. I wasn't completely sure about which procedure I should do. So anyway, I went in to speak with the midwife, and she just seemed so much against the D&C, and she was saying it's a very big risk to do this because it might cause scarring in your uterus, and if there is severe scarring you might not be able to fall pregnant. And yeah, she said that there was a 2% chance of that happening. And for me, I immediately felt worried because I do want to have children in the future, you know, and 2% was just too much for me. And yeah, she just put all this fear on me, and I thought, what? Like, I don't know now, because I was leaning towards getting the D&C. This is just such an emotional process, and it was just ongoing. I didn't have a natural miscarriage. This was a missed miscarriage, and I've had this baby in 4 weeks because by the ultrasounds, it showed that the baby was about 7 weeks and 2 days, but I was already past week 10. So I was just very emotional at that point, and I thought I really want to get rid of it now and kind of move on and digest what's happened. But it's just a weird feeling that you have as a woman, knowing that there's still a fetus inside you, like you still have that kind of connection. Anyway, I needed to talk to my husband, and I told the lady that I need to go outside and call my husband and have a think about it, because I was pretty much prepared to do this procedure. Because when I had initially organized this appointment, I asked them, do you want me to fast, or is there anything I need to do to prepare for the procedure? And they said, no, just come at 8:45 for your appointment and we'll go from there. But when I did ask the midwife in the room if I was going to go ahead with it, expecting that I would go in for the procedure, she said, oh no, we would have to book it another day. So that was just another piece of information that got missed within the process. So I was just pretty upset, because this whole thing, I just feel like I wasn't looked after at all, and that I had to dig for a lot of, you know, answers, and just no one was doing anything to really help me in this process. So it was just getting a bit much. But anyway, I walked out of the room and I called my husband. It was just good to talk to him, because he's just so caring and lovely and gentle with me. And I just said, what do I do? Because I do really want to get this over and done with now. It's been going on for weeks and I'm tired, I'm exhausted. And I told him about the 2% chance of me getting scarring in my uterus, and he said, oh, that's a bit high. And I said, I agree, so let's do the medication. Okay, so after I took a break, I went in to speak with the doctor this time, and I was pretty happy with my decision, saying that I would rather take the medication and let the miscarriage happen at home. Then she told me a different thing. It's less than 1% that you would get scarring from a D&C procedure. So then I thought, oh, like I just decided on the medication, and now you're telling me something different about the D&C, which is what I was leaning towards in the first place. I started to tear up, and I thought, this cannot be happening. Like, can this not be a straightforward process? So anyway, this is why I'm putting so much detail into my story, so that you are prepared, so that you know what can happen, if you miscarry or if you go through, a similar experience. I went out into the lobby and I just felt exhausted. I went to get a chai latte, and I just sat down and I took a breath, and I just said something briefly to God. I was praying, and I immediately thought of the verse where it says, for God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And I repeated that in my mind. I rang my husband again, and I asked him about it, and he agreed with me, saying that, well, considering the risk of a D&C going wrong, it's less than 1%. So that should be fine. And I agreed with him. I felt pretty much at peace. After the phone call, I needed to sit there on my own and just breathe. And by the way, it was hard sitting there, because in the lobby, this is where everybody comes in for their own pregnancy assessment, or those who have had babies. Like, this is like the meeting area in the lobby. And I was sitting there and I was facing the shop, and there was all these beautiful flowers and soft toys and balloons saying congratulations and that. So That was actually quite sad and hard to see. And then I saw some mums come out with their bubs in a little trolley, which was really cute. But anyway, I was sitting there and I repeated that Bible verse in my mind. And as I was doing that, my doctor called me and she said, "Oh, hi, I just wanted to see how you're going." And I said to her, "You are ringing at the perfect time right now. I was just praying and you called me, so thank you." And that's what I said. And I just confirmed with her what they had told me about these different facts and chances of things going wrong and all this. And she said to me, "Yeah, no, it's under 1% that a D&C can go wrong and cause scarring, so you should be fine." Going by that, I went in again to see the doctor at the hospital. I said I just spoke with my doctor and my husband and I'm happy to go through with the D&C. My procedure was scheduled for the next day, so I was told I needed to be in by 11 o'clock and that the procedure would be done at about 2 o'clock. But because I was going through a public system, that would depend on all the emergencies happening in at the hospital and who needs attention first. So it could take a few hours, but yeah, should be around 2 o'clock. That's all I got told about this process. So the day I arrived at the hospital at 11 o'clock, I was in the waiting room till 12 o'clock, so it took an hour for me to actually go in. The lady took my blood pressure. I went in to get changed. So once I did that, they took me into another section where there was people recovering and also preparing for surgery, so everyone had their own beds. And yeah, she gave me a warm blanket. I got my own bed. There was people either side of me, but I had curtains on both sides and then just like a blank wall. So I went in and that was about 12:30, 1 o'clock. For the next 3-4 hours, I was sitting there very patiently. I had time to literally think through my whole life and just sit there and think. I had nothing else to do. I didn't have my phone or anything like that. I was just sitting there, and it eventually got to the point where I was starting to feel a bit sick because I hadn't eaten that whole day. I had to fast from 7 a.m. so I couldn't eat or drink water. This was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I was feeling pretty sick at that point. So I told them that. I said, "I'm feeling nauseous now. I'm getting a headache. Is there anything you can do?" And so they said, "We'll get you a drip." So they would put that in my arm. I've actually still got a bruise here. I don't know if you can see it, but that was going into my arm so they can put fluids into my body and that will hopefully make me feel better. I did have another lady next to me who was going through the exact same process as me, so getting a D&C, and she was also getting fluid. This is already just before 5 o'clock that I've been laying there doing absolutely nothing. I wasn't informed at all. They didn't come in and check on me at all, so it was just very strange how they went about this process. But anyway, at this point, at about 5 o'clock, they said, "Okay, now it's time to take this pill," which causes the fetus to break away from the lining and then it opens up the cervix, which prepares you for the procedure. They said you had to put the pill under your tongue and let it dissolve. I think it was 2 pills, sorry. So you put those 2 pills under your tongue and let it dissolve. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got told. This is where it gets scary. So as soon as the tablets were dissolved, I was laying on my bed and I actually was able to grab my phone before that. So I was just kind of chilling, looking at my phone, and I had to put it down immediately and I got the sharpest abdominal pain. And this was very, very similar, or it's pretty much the same pain that I've had in the past. When I've had my period, I've had a really bad abdominal pain where no one has really taken me seriously with that, just thinking, oh, it's just, you know, period pain and whatever, but it's completely debilitating. It's scary and it feels like I'm going to die. Like like I'm not exaggerating in the slightest. So anyway, I get that pain and I start to freak out because I can't do anything. Like I jump up on the bed, I'm leaning over, I'm literally foaming at the mouth because it's hurting so much. Like you know how when you get so upset that you just can't close your mouth or something. So I was like leaning over like that. It was hurting and cramping so much and it was continuous as well. Like I read online that some people describe it as contractions, like the pain comes on and then it goes off again, but mine was just continuous. So it's like continuous contractions. It was really strong, like I couldn't deal with it. This went on for about 2 hours and I did not get much attention at all, and I had to go to the bathroom, so I got diarrhea and I was throwing up and there was nothing to throw up. So that happened about 7 times where I was just trying to throw up and no one specifically looking after me. It was so strange because one of the nurses I had, she was nice for a few seconds and then she would like snap back at me, which was just really strange. I'm like, why would you touch my arm? It's like, it's okay. And then she would be like, no, just sit down, I'll get you a heat pack. Like, she'd be really stern with me. I'm like, you do not understand how much pain I have right now. I just didn't feel heard or looked after, and there was no offer to give me medication. And because I was so much in pain, I couldn't think about asking them about medication. Like, my head just wasn't there. And I remember there's a point where my hospital gown falls off and I said I need to go to the bathroom, and so I grabbed the pole that has that liquid that was going into your arm, and she's like, okay, no, stop, we need to fix this up, you need to look respectable, because there's other patients in the other room recovering. Anyway, she's just like rude like that, and I thought, wow, that's just, thanks for caring, you know, like, I'm in hospital, I'm scared, I've got all this pain. I go back to lay in my bed after a while and I just FaceTime my husband. I managed to click it on my phone, hardly managing, but I do it, and he's like, hey babe, how are you? He just got home from work. I couldn't say anything. I had the phone here and I was reaching over and I was just like throwing up. He just said, I'm coming to see you, and he just put down the phone. At that point, yeah, it was a relief, because he came through and he actually wasn't meant to come through because of COVID. Like, you couldn't have any support personnel, visitors or anything like that. So, but he apparently just walked straight through the doors and the hospital. So, you know, I was so grateful. At that point, the pain had subsided, thank God, and the doctor was about to give me some kind of pain medication, which I think they try not to do because you might not be safe for surgery or something like that. But when you're at that point, I just did not want to go through anything because I was in so much pain that I could not describe. Apparently, when my husband came in to see me, they were just standing around with a tablet, and he asked them about me. Can you give her anything? And they're like, oh yeah, we can give her this. And then they went in to give me the pain medication. And I'm just thinking, what is going on? Like, no one cares. Like, hello. The lady beside me, she took the same tablets, and all I could hear her do was moan a little bit here and there, and that was it. But for me, all these symptoms that I was having, it was just so horrific. Like, I get so upset talking about it now, but I have to, because, you know, this might help any of you listening to my story. I also did mention when they put the fluids into me, I had 2 different people do that. So this guy came in and he put the needle in my arm and he was just like stabbing it, and it was moving around, and he's like, no, that didn't work. And so he just walked away and I didn't see him again. And then I got this other lady. She was really cute, she was sweet, but then I thought as well, as I was laying there, looks can be deceiving, they can also be just as rough. So considering all the blood tests I'd had the week before and being in hospital and everything, I was just kind of scared of the pain. But yeah, as she put it in, she was digging like crazy and it hurt so much, and I actually got a few tears from that too. It went through obviously and I got the fluid, so it was the best I could wish for. So it gets to about 8 o'clock. I was getting ready to go into the theatre. They were prepping me. I spoke to like 3 different nurses and another few doctors, and I had to keep repeating my information. So just be prepared if you do go in for these procedures, just be prepared to repeat your name and your date of birth and why you're at the hospital. I spoke with quite a few of them, and I got a lovely male doctor who came in and he spoke to me briefly about when I'll go in for the procedure. And yeah, he took a look at my arm. He's like, oh, you poor thing. And I'm like, are you serious? It's probably not meant to look like that, but I'd been stabbed everywhere and you could see the bruises. What he did is he put local anesthetic on my arm. He got a little cloth or something, rubbed it on my arm, put the needle in, and I didn't feel a thing. So I was very grateful for that. The next stage was going into the theatre, and I was put under general anesthetic, I think it's called. So I wasn't awake throughout the procedure. This part of the procedure went really well. That was going to be about 15 minutes to half an hour, and then you can go into the recovery room and go home. But because it was so late in the evening, it was about 9:30 actually by the time I went into the theatre, they said that I had to stay overnight. So I went under, they gave me this gas, and before I knew it, I fell asleep on the theatre bed. I woke up again at about 11 o'clock and I was really drowsy. I remember going into 2 different rooms and I was zoning in and out, and the nurses were asking me the basic questions again, like my name, date of birth, and why I was there and what procedure I had just had. And then they wheeled me into a nice quiet room. There was 2 beds in this room, and yeah, I fell asleep to about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up, and then from there I had to go to the bathroom because I was bleeding quite a lot at that point. But then other than that, the night went well. So I watched TV for a few hours, and then I went to sleep again at about 5 and woke up at 7. So thank God that day was over. The procedure had gone well and I felt okay. I had some breakfast, called my husband to come and collect me because I was given that permission by a nurse that had come in. I'd seen probably about 3 or 4 different people just that morning alone. I was told that they would send me some information about my procedure, and they said, well, you're ready to go home. So my husband came and picked me up. I would have never imagined any of this to happen through all the complications and the horrific pain that I do not want to repeat ever again in my life. It has been a very hard and sad experience for me. Like I said at the start of this video, I'm still in this process, but yeah, just looking back at how I was treated at the hospital and how this whole process was kind of dealt with, it wasn't good. And I am just so traumatized by the amount of pain that I had from taking those tablets just before surgery. And it makes me scared for the future. If I really wanted to have kids and my husband and I were trying, I don't know if I would want to try again for a while because I'm so traumatized about what happened. And yeah, it's not just because of those tablets. As I mentioned before, I have had these very similar pains before, so it could happen anyway, but obviously going through this whole process just need to take time to recover from what's happened. And it is quite hard because I didn't tell anyone really. I've just told some people that are really close to me, and yeah, just the way I am, and being a woman, maybe it's very helpful to talk to people, but at the same time you need to be smart about who you tell, because a lot of the time people would not understand and be there for you, so you're really just wasting your energy. And yeah, your husband or your partner is definitely your support and your rock during this time. My husband was so great. He was always so gracious and gentle towards me, and it's hard for him too. We can't forget that our partners are also involved in this. And I think even though we do have other feelings because the baby is inside us, I think we have some other feelings there, like maternal feelings and disappointment and sadness, but they are definitely still involved in this. I know that my husband pointed out that he really did appreciate me asking him how he felt in this process as well, as much as it was traumatic for me and I was the one going to the appointments, I was the one getting the pain, I'm the one threatened, whether I'll be able to have kids again or not. Yeah, that's my little piece of advice as well. Don't forget about your husband in this process. I really hope that through everything that's happened, I haven't had any serious damage done to my uterus that will stop me from having kids. I just wish I would have known more going into this whole procedure about the pain levels. It would have been nice to have been given some kind of information. And also when I got discharged, I didn't even know that, for example, you have to refrain from sex for 2 weeks because you've just had the procedure. The only reason why I knew that was because I overheard the nurse telling another D&C patient that. So I thought that was very, very strange. The last few days I've done a lot of research on D&Cs and the medication misoprostol. I heard one lady talk about her miscarriage experience and her having to go and get a DC, and it was all pretty much positive. She got looked after really well. She didn't have to take those pills for some reason and still was able to get a DNC, but pretty sure she was American, so I don't know if it's different over in that country. But if anyone has any information, please let me know in the comments so other people can read it as well. I'd be interested to know because I would avoid that for the life of me. I really hope I never have to take that or go through that again. So I'm going to put down some helpful links down below so you can have a read, but there's a lot of bad experiences related to that pill. But yeah, just have a read so you can see for yourselves about how other people explain the pain. going. I really hope that this video has helped you in some way, or if you're going through miscarriage at the moment. It's videos like this that can help you, and I definitely looked up some miscarriage videos online here on YouTube. So before I go, I just wanted to say that make sure you ask all the questions you need to when you speak to your doctor, the nurses, people at the hospital, because your life is important, your body is important, and you need to be heard. I just know that doctors can just really brush past things and not really listen to you, but you need to be firm. I'm actually a really shy person. I grew up as a shy child, and to this day I have like imposter syndrome. I don't want to bother anyone, and I would suffer in silence type thing. But I've learned through this process that you cannot afford to do that, because if you do, you will suffer in silence. Make sure you do what's right for you and your partner, and know that there is help and support out there if you do go through the procedure. What I wasn't told was that there is pain medications that can help you through the process if it is very painful for you. There are ways. I just never got told or offered anything through that process when I did it. Hi everyone, so I thought I would do a part 2 of this video because I gained some new information during this last week that I wanted to share with you, because I think it's pretty important if you are going through this process. I learnt more things, and there's some things that have me a little bit more anxious, but I want to provide you with all that information. So it's been 2 weeks now since my procedure, and there has been bleeding for me and spotting, but that's starting to subside now. So when I filmed the, let's just call it the part 1 video, that was about 4 days after my procedure, and now it's been 2 weeks. Last week I got a call from a nurse. I went public, so she was a random nurse. I don't think she was in the ward when I was there actually getting my procedure done. And anyway, she called me. She just asked how I was going and wanted to check up on me, making sure that I wasn't bleeding too much, and everything was fine there, which is good news. I only had a little bit of pain in my abdomen, so it felt like really small needles going into me type thing, like that very sharp pain, but it wasn't unbearable at all. It was probably about 1 out of 10 pain, so that was fine. I went on to tell her about my experience when I took the misoprostol, saying that I'm quite traumatized with what happened, and I'm just thinking about when I filmed part 1, it's just so hard to really describe how it felt. I tried to explain to her about that, and I asked her the question of, in your experience, have you had any women complain and all this? And it's just annoying because sometimes when you're trying to get just a rough answer from somebody, like the nurse could say, yes, I've had quite a few instances where women have come in complaining about that and they've had really bad pain, etc., etc. Like, that's all I wanted to know. I just wanted to know that it's not just me out there who experienced such bad pain. But anyway, she said, no, I can't tell you that unless we bring you in and I look over all your papers. You don't need to know my history or my papers. Like, listen to what I'm saying. This is the whole process. Like, no one's listening to me or taking me seriously, and that's like the scary thing about it. When I was at the hospital, they didn't give me any painkillers, and I looked up on the computer when I've done my research now in the last few weeks about other people's experiences, and even the legitimate websites of the drug or of the hospital, and they're saying make sure you take Panadol, ibuprofen or something before you take misoprostol because it can help with the pain. Anyway, you can tell that I'm still very upset about it. I'm still traumatized about it, and I was sitting here this morning thinking about what I need to say in this video. I need to revisit that and tell you because this is so important. It's vital. So anyway, as you know, I did get oxycodone, which is pain relief for moderate and severe pain. I got that after 2 hours of me struggling in the hospital, and my symptoms had actually subsided at that point. So when they came and gave me the oxycodone, the pain really wasn't there anymore, but I definitely took it anyway because I did not want it to start happening again. What I could recommend to you is definitely, if you go through this, make sure that you ask for pain relief straight away because they can give it to you. So just putting that out there. Anyway, I went a little bit off track, but I asked her, have you had this experience with anybody else or any other women coming in complaining or telling you the same story about misoprostol? And she couldn't tell me anything at all. She's like, I can't tell you, I have to look at your history. So I just moved on from that, and I just asked her, okay, I just want to check how much misoprostol you gave me, because they gave me 2 tablets, so I'm just wondering how much was in each of those. So she said that I was given 2 tablets, which was 200 mcg each, and usually the recommended dose is 800 mcg. So she said that they actually gave you a lower dose, and then she went on to say that I was lucky that I actually had them in hospital, because if I was at home I would have gotten a higher dose. And I looked it up. They said that you can take 1 tablet from 1 to 4 times a day. So that was good to get confirmed, just to make sure that I wasn't given too much or anything like that. I did look up on the net alternatives to misoprostol, and there were a few more tablets that you can take, but I'm not sure if that varies from different countries. I do have a link down below which compares some tablets. By some of the reviews that I read, the misoprostol looks like the one that causes the most amount of pain. So then I went on to ask her, is it possible to go through a D&C procedure without taking the misoprostol? The nurse said that yes, it is possible, but the thing is you're taking a big risk, so in a way that your pelvis can be affected by it. So when you go in to do the D&C procedure, the doctor has to open your cervix, and that will tamper with your pelvis, I think she was saying, because you open it up mechanically, and that can actually affect childbirth later on. We didn't really go much into detail because this was just a phone call, but she was saying there was a risk there. So I just wanted to let you know, just keep probing nurses and whoever you speak to about your procedures. There's nothing wrong with asking questions. If you really don't want to go down the path of taking misoprostol, there are other options, but just know that there are risks. So anyway, until the next video, I hope that you have a lovely day, and we'll talk soon.